Maybe it's just the shape of the room. But it looks like there's more people here. Is the same number of people? Yes? We're almost there. Ayodhya. This isn't Ayodhya yet, but we're getting there. This morning, we heard the son of Gautama, Shatananda, speaking the history and the glories of the glorious Vishwamitra Muni. This was in the evening time when they had arrived at Mithila, the capital of Janak's kingdom. Hearing his glories being spoken, Vishwamitra Muni spoke the glories of King Janak for some time, and they parted for the evening so that all individuals could perform their evening rituals. And they took rest, still outside the city, the palace. Next morning at sunrise, King Janak was there with his ministers. And he said very similar words as Dasarath had said when Vishwamitra Muni had come. Basically, blank check. Whatever it is that you have come for, command me, and I will do it. Now, what Vishwamitra Muni said was only part of the story, because Vishwamitra Muni had a service to do, and the service was the marriage of Sita and Rama. So that's what we're going to be hearing about, this glorious, told again and again, and again and again, and again and again. One of the favorite parts of Ramayana, from the Ramayana reciters, is the marriage of Sita and Rama. It's a pastime because they're eternal associates, but they're seeing each other for the first time in their pastimes. And naturally, loving attraction between the two was awakened just by seeing one another. And then all of the events that follow were just part of the unfolding of their coming together. There's no such pastime in Vaikuntha. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, for the first time meets Narayana, and they become attracted to one another and get married. No such thing. So this is a pastime that appears to be human-like. And so humans see the pastime and they feel some of those feelings, of course, from their own perspective. They feel some of those feelings. And the idea is to connect those feelings to transcendence, transcendental feelings. And that's what we're doing this evening, is going back one more step hearing subject matters that are by the design of the Supreme Lord through the agency of Rama and Narada and Valmiki to attract our hearts to loving attraction for the Supreme Personality Godhead. In this case is a very wonderful manifestation of Lord Ramachandra. So there's going to be 4 parts of this evening's discussion, because that's how it's broken up in Ramayana. There's King Janak giving a little summary description of himself and his lineage and the bow. Then another is the description by Vishishta of the lineage of Dasarath. Then a third is yet again another description of Janak, as is the custom when there is marriage, that someone from the family of the bride gives the ancestry, the genealogy of their family. And then the marriage itself, and then the parting of Vishwamitra Muni. So those are the sections that we'll be discussing. Following Janaka's question to Vishwamitra Muni, he says 2 things. I brought the sons of Dasarath, because he doesn't know who they are yet. I brought the sons of Dasarath here because they would like to see the bow of Lord Shiva, and then after seeing the bow of Lord Shiva, return the same way that they came. That's what he says. So in response to the question, King Janak decides to give a narration about the bow and how the bow came into his care. So he goes back to the first in the line of his dynasty, which is King Nimi. Now some of you may have had the presence to bring with you this genealogical chart. We're going to be referring to it again. On page 25, and the right-hand side is Dasarath's family line. And the left-hand side, page 24, is Janak's family line. If you see at the top of Janak's family line, there is Maharaj Nimi. But where does Maharaj Nimi come from? You will hear that in relation to the lineage of Dasarath. So let's look at the Dasarath side, page 25. And just from Bhagavad Gita, we know Vishnu, Brahma, Marichi, Kashyapa, Vivaswan, Vaivasvatamanu, Ikshvaku. At least we know Vivaswan, Vaivasvatamanu, Ikshvaku, chapter 4, Bhagavad Gita. Because Krishna taught Bhagavad Gita's message previously to Vivaswan, who taught it to Manu, who taught it to Ikshvaku. Vivaswan, we heard this already. He's one of the Adityas. The first of the Adityas, the sons of Kashyapa and Aditi. And Kashyapa, we heard, is the son of Marichi, and Marichi is the son of Brahma, one of the 12 great sages, Marichi. So we've already heard about down to Ikshvaku. Let's go over to the second column. When we heard about the descent of the Ganges, we heard about Asita Sagara, Asamanjasa, Anshuman, Dilipa, Bhagirath, and then Bhagirath's son. Many times Ram is referred to as, O descendant of Kukutsha, who is the father of Raghu, so Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram, or descendant of Raghu, or descendant of Kukutsa. So we've covered many of these that are in the second column, and we also this morning mentioned about Ambarish, not this morning, previous. Ambarish, not Ambarish Maharaj, who was described in the ninth canto, but this Ambarish that had to perform a yajna, the horse was stolen, so he had to go find the horse, or a human to sacrifice instead of the horse. We heard all that. So that's Ambarish. So we've covered a lot of this already. But now we're going to Ikshvaku. Let's go to the left-hand column, page 25. Ikshvaku, we heard that Ayodhya was built by Manu, and he installed the first king of Ayodhya as Ikshvaku. But now we're going to hear some more. Ikshvaku had 100 sons. The eldest was his successor, Kukshi. But there were 100 sons, and son number 12 of those 100 sons, Janaka is going to describe. The 12th son of Ikshvaku was named Nimi. And Nimi wanted to perform a yajna. When he went to the priest of the Ikshvaku dynasty, Vashishta said, hang on, I'm busy doing another yajna, when I'm done, I'll get to it. But Nimi didn't want to wait, so he approached Gautama. Can you assist me in performing this yajna? So Gautama said, sure. And then when Vashishta found out that King Nimi did this, he cursed him and said, you should die. And King Nimi counter-cursed him, you should also die. Well, they're both very powerful personalities, and so they didn't instantly die, but in preparation for their dying, Vashishta went to Lord Rama. I'm going to die, what should I do? And Lord Rama said, quickly, go to the place by the ocean where both Varuna and Mitra are, and enter into the semen of Varuna, and you'll take birth as Vashishta part 2. So he follows what Brahma says, and he goes to the ocean. Just at that time, Brahmashi, a heavenly society girl, passed by, and Mitra went, woo, woo, woo. Let's get together. And she said, okay. And then Varuna came on the scene, and he said, woo, 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 let's get together. And she said, well, I've already promised to get together with Mitra. And he said, if you don't satisfy my lusty desire, then I'll place my semen in the celestial pot. And Ramashi said, well, I've given my word to Mitra, but I give my heart to you. Very nice of her to say. Mitra heard her say that. So Mitra cursed her that she would have to stay on earth for some time and associate with King Pururava, and together they would have a number of children, which we're going to hear about this evening. So Mitra, Ravashi's out of the picture now. Mitra placed his semen in the celestial pot, and it practically immediately Agastya came out of the pot. and said, I am your son, born from a pot. No mother. Pretty unusual. And then Varuna placed his semen in the pot and Vishishta part 2 came out. So if you remember, I'm sure you remember, because you all have good memories. It's not Kali Yuga, we don't forget things easily with our good memories. Way back on the first of the genealogies, we discussed the 3 sons of Varuna. Remember? Because Valmiki was the son of Varuna, born from his mother, the anthill. So, the first of those sons was Bhrigu. Charshani was the wife of Varuna, and Bhrigu was born as their son. And if you remember, Valmiki was born from an anthill, and Urvashi is listed in her chart, but parentheses retracted. Vishishta was born. If you recall, the Bhagavatam states, Prabhupada writes in the purport, Sridhar Swami says specifically in his commentary, Bhrigu and Valmiki were exceptional sages in character and in their Vaishnava capacities. And then there was Vashishta, who was Brahman realized and not the same caliber as Valmiki and Bhrigu. Remember that? Good. So, born at the same time, almost at the same time, from the same celestial pot, which is quite unusual. No mother, just the pot was the mother. Vashishta and Agastya. Remember we heard about Agastya. He is the one that Sunda tried to kill, and he cindered Sunda. Then Sunda's wife, Tataka, and 2 children, Rich and Sabahu, attacked him, and he didn't cinder them, he just cursed them. And then Tataka became, not beautiful anymore, but still very powerful, and a Rakshasa, and so forth. Agastya. And Vishishta part 2. So Vishishta was cursed to die. Now back to Janaka's narration. Vishishta was cursed to die, but he had a solution given to him by Lord Rama. And so he took his second birth as the son of Varuna, born from a pot. Nimi died. Nimi was placed in his body was placed in a big vat of oil to preserve it. While the yajna was completed, remember Gautama did the yajna, and when the yajna was done, Bhrigu, remember? Bhrigu was one of the sons of Varuna, born of the mother Charshani. Bhrigu had some special power, and with his special power, he invoked the soul of Nimi to become resituated in the body of Nimi. When he's died, now he's Nimi part 2. This is Janaka narrating this. Then the rishis, they start churning the body of Nimi, and in churning the body of Nimi, they produce a son. There's a similar description in the Bhagavatam. And now we're going to look again at our chart, genealogical chart, page 24. at the head of the line of Janaka is Nimi. This is Nimi part 2. And the churning of the body of Nimi produced a son, whose name is Niti. And Niti was also given another name, Janaka, and a third name, one person having 3 different names. It happens. Fifth, Deha. Deha means body, and Vit means without. So that's the next in line. This is Janaka's explanation of his lineage. And then some generations later, he mentions, keep following down, and you see Devarata. Devarata. So Devarata was gifted with the bow of Lord Shiva. And Janaka's explanation of how that took place is slightly different, so we'll narrate them both, in the same Valmiki Ramayana, because later Parashuram tells the history of the bow of Lord Shiva, which Rama's going to break. He hasn't broken it, he hasn't even seen it yet. But Parashuram tells the story of the bow of Lord Shiva, tells the story of the bow of Lord Vishnu, because Parashuram has the bow of Lord Vishnu. And Parashuram has heard what hasn't happened yet in their narration at least, that Ram breaks the bow of Lord Shiva. And he gives the history of the bow of Lord Shiva in this way. This is Parashuram's version. It comes later. Vishvakarma, the architect of the demigods, he made 2 bows in likeness of one another, one given to Lord Shiva, one given to Lord Vishnu. The bow that was given to Lord Shiva was used by Lord Shiva to kill a demon named Tripura. And therefore one of the names of Lord Vishnu is, Lord Shiva is Tripurari, the killer of the demon Tripura. So, Tripura, excuse me. So, after the demon of Tripura was killed, some of the demigods were curious. Who's more powerful, Lord Shiva or Lord Vishnu? So they approached Brahma. How are we going to determine this? So Brahma came up with a plan. Brahma instigated some tension between Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. They had some contest of strength. In that contest of strength, the roaring of Lord Vishnu was so strong that the bow of Lord Shiva was trembling. And Lord Shiva exhibited symptoms of fear. So the Devas concluded Lord Vishnu is superior. And Lord Shiva, in disdain, he just gave the bow to the demigods, and the demigods gave the bow to Devarata. And then, as we see, page 24, the line from Devarata down, 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 it came to the hand of Janaka. Which Lord Ramachandra is going to break very soon. However, when Janaka is describing this to Vishwamitra Muni, in the same Valmiki Ramayana, he describes it a little differently. The bow of Lord Shiva was shone at the Daksha Yajna, and he twanged the bow and said, with this bow, because I've been dishonored by the devas and the proper share of the sacrifice of Daksha has not been offered to me, I'm going to use this bow and sever the heads of all the demigods. Whoa, the demigods were a little concerned about that. So they spent some time pacifying Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva was pacifying. And he gave the bow to the demigods. And the demigods gave the bow to Devarata. Actually, back to the Parashuram didn't give the bow to the demigods. Lord Shiva directly gave the bow to Devarata. So, although he's just one name in a long list of names, very important, presumably, very powerful, very significant personality. So two different narrations, but the bow of Lord Shiva was then in the lineage of Janaka. And since Vishwamitra Muni has requested King Janaka to show the bow to the two sons of Dasarath, he's very inclined. Then King Janaka describes his daughter Sita, and there's some slight variations, but one time when preparing for a yajna, as was the tradition, the king would personally go into the yajna field and make the field even by plowing it. And as he was plowing it, from the earth came a child, a female child. And the slightly different version was, from the earth came a golden box. And he opened up the golden box and looked inside, and there's a beautiful child. And he understood this is providential arrangement. He brought the child back, showed the child to his wife, and said, let us accept this child as our daughter. And she was very happy. So from that time, the child that came from the plow became known as Sita, because that's what Sita means, born from the furrow of the plow. And another name that some during Janak's time addressed her as Bhumi Sutta, born from earth. And some others addressed her as Vaidehi, the daughter of the kingdom, Videha kingdom. If you remember, the first son from the churning of the body of Nimi was Videha, Deha. So she became known as Vaidehi by some different names. And Janaka raised her very lovingly, very affectionately, very fatherly. And please remember, Janaka is one of the 12 Mahajans. He is an exceptionally exalted person. This list of the 12 Mahajans is given in the Bhagavatam by one of the 12 Mahajans himself, by Yamaraj, when speaking to the Yamadutas. These 12 include Janaka. Janaka speaking should be heard in perspective of his position. He understood that this child is very, very special. And he wanted to have only the most qualified person become her husband. And his way of thinking was the person should be of special valor. So he thought an appropriate measure of some potential husband's valor is he could lift the bow of Lord Shiva and string it. he made that as a condition. And in passage of time, many kings and princes who wished the hand of Sita were told by Janak, I insist that the person who marries my daughter shows his valor. And the test of valor is to lift the bow and swing it. No one could do it. No one could do it. King after king and prince after prince, and no one could do it. And suddenly they had a little king conference. They decided, Janak's got to go. He's offending the kings. So, headed by one of the nearby kings, whose name was Sudhanva, from the city of Sankashya, Sudhanva and other kings attacked Mithila from all directions. And the battle went on for 1 year, and the resources of the king, Janak, were becoming exhausted, and he was becoming very concerned and big anxiety. So he decided to engage in austerities and pray for the demigods to help him, because he was only upholding some vow that he kept. And the demigods rewarded him by providing him with an entire army that defeated all the other kings. And Sudhanva was killed, and Janak entrusted his brother Kushadvaja to become the king of that kingdom. Yeah. In describing the lineage, he describes the bow going to Devarata, going back, and passed on, and then his father entrusted the kingdom to him. Janak, as the elder brother, said, take care of your younger brother, and his father went off to the forest to end his life in complete meditation on the personality of Godhead. So Kushadvaja is now the king of this nearby kingdom, and Janak has made this commitment that only one who can lift and string this bow will become the husband of Sita. And the bow has been kept in a special place in the palace. There's different versions of Ramayana, but this one says it took 5,000 men to pull the bow on a cart with 8 wheels, some say more than 8 wheels, just to bring it into the presence of Vishwamitra Muni, Rama, and Lakshmana. Now, it does not say in Valmiki Ramayana why he made this condition. All it says is someone who can show some valor, but why that particular display of valor? And there's different versions of Ramayana that say some of the following. 4. One day, Sita was playing with her friends with a ball, and the ball went bouncing, and the ball went bouncing into the place where the bow of Shiva was kept, and it bounced right into the case. And so, with her left hand, Sita picked up the case, picked up the bow, opened the case, picked up the bow, picked up the ball, put the bow back, and went bouncing the ball back to the girls. And when the girls saw it, they were amazed. Later they told Janak what happened. Then there's another version that says, one day Sita was gathering flowers. She saw some especially beautiful, exquisitely beautiful flowers, and a little out of her reach. She tried and couldn't reach. So she was looking for a stick somewhere in the garden, couldn't find a stick, and then she got the idea. She ran into the palace, picked up the bow with her left hand, was running with the bow in her hand to get the flowers out of the garden. And all the guards and maids and elder people, they fell to the ground unconscious just seeing this. And then she got the flowers, put the bow back. Then another version says, King Janak wanted to train his daughter in humility and wifely duties that she would have to perform at a later point in time, so he gave her some service of cleaning. And one of the areas given to her to clean was where the bow of Lord Shiva was kept. And she was cleaning and cleaning and cleaning, and when it came to the bow, she wanted to make that place clean too, and so she opened up the lid and dusted the lid and the inside, and with her left hand lifted up the bow and held it up in the air and cleaned the inside of the case where the bow was kept and gently placed it back. And this news was given to Janak. This is what she does on a daily basis. She lifts the bow and puts it back effortlessly, like picks up a paper from the floor. That's what it says. And the fourth rendering is that Narada Muni once visited the palace of King Janak and told him, now this is not Valmiki or mine, but told him, your daughter is the goddess of fortune Lakshmi, and one day she will marry Vishnu, and so the marriage arrangement should be commensurate with, should be something only that Vishnu can do. So he put two and two together and lift the bow of Lord Shiva because no one else could do it. But Valmiki Ramayana doesn't give the reason why. And when these kings were, saying bad things about King Janak, he didn't give them the reason. But his reason was, if Sita can lift the bow, she's got to be married to somebody that can at least lift the bow. Otherwise, poor guy will have an inferiority complex. So, the bow, the box, the case in which the bow is kept has been brought out, and Vishwamitra Muni gestures to the case where the bow is kept, indicating without words, just to Ram, to go examine the bow. And the case is opened, and both Ram and Lakshman utter words of astonishment at its brilliance. They worshipped it. They couldn't lift it, but they worshipped it with sandalwood paste and suitable items. There's a daily puja to the bow. He then circumambulated the bow. Then he looked at Vishwamitra Muni, who nodded. Like he's getting permission before he does anything, because that's his guru. And he then turns to Janaka and says that I'd like to lift the bow and test its weight. By all means, please do. So he put his hand around the middle of the bow, one hand, left hand, same as what Sita had done, and was testing its weight. He looked at Vishwamitra Muni and said, please lift the bow and string the bow. So instructed by Vishwamitra Muni, in one swift move, he lifted the bow, pulled the bow, strung the bow cracked. According to Valmiki Ramayana, there were many thousands of people in the assembly, and the breaking of the bow was louder than thunder. Everyone got knocked over by the sound, the force of the sound. It fell to the ground unconscious, according to Valmiki Ramayana, except for 4 people: Janak, Vishwamitra Muni, and Rama and Lakshman. And Janak was greatly relieved because he was in anxiety. Maybe he had made a task that's so difficult that Sita will never get married. But now it's a done deal. I've given my word that my daughter will marry that person who can lift and string the bow. You did more than that. You broke the bow. So he turned to Vishwamitra Muni and said, with your permission, I would like to send my messengers to go to the palace of Dasarath and seek his blessing for this marriage to take place and invite him to come at once. Now this is a nice detail. It doesn't come in this section of the Valmiki Ramayana, but much later, when there's a discussion between Sita and Anasuya, most chaste wife of Agastya, Anasuya wants to know about, the details of her marriage. And Sita discloses, one of the things that attracted me most about Ram is when Ram was asked if he would accept me in marriage, he said, I can't decide this for myself. You have to consult my father. Very similar to these 100 daughters that when they were approached by Vayu, they said, don't talk to us about marriage, you speak to our father. Whatever our father says, that's what we'll do. So this is just character, quality, example-setting behavior. And it's what attracted Sita to Ram, he said to Anasuya. But anyway, Janaka asks Vishwamitra Muni for permission, and Vishwamitra Muni gives his permission. Go ask Dasarath. He agrees to this marriage. So messengers were sent speedily, according to the Valmiki Ramayana. It took them 3 days. And when they reached the kingdom of Dasarath, remember, Dasarath was in anxiety. Oh, how can I stand being away from Ram even for 1 hour? What to speak of 10 days, because this yajna was going to take some time to get to Siddha Ashram and then some days for the yajna. It's been more than that, and how's my son doing? He is in transcendental anxiety. And the messengers give the good news. This and that, the other thing, and the other thing. Tatika was killed, Subahu was killed, and so forth and so on. They went to the palace of your dear friend King Janak, and Ram broke the bow of Lord Shiva, and Janaka is wanting you to accept that Ram will marry Sita. And remember, that's when, just as Vishwamitra Muni came, that was the contemplation of Dasarath. My son is now of age to be married. He's already 12 years old. So now there's this news that the daughter of King Janak, his dear friend and exalted Mahajan, his daughter is being requested to be married to Ram. But Dasarath didn't say yes or no, he turned to his ministers, Vashishta and Vamadev and others. And they immediately said, yes, this is very good. So Dasarath said, then let us make preparations to go tomorrow morning. So with gifts laden with gold and jewels and hundreds of thousands of cows, because later we'll hear when the marriage took place for each of the sons. He had 4 sons. Each of the sons, he gave away 100,000 cows That's 400,000 cows. That's a lot of cows. To the Brahmanas in Mithila. So this whole entourage, his army and everybody and everything, the queens, the other brothers, they all went to Mithila. When Dasarath reaches Mithila, Janak personally comes, arranges a royal reception, and requests, directly speaking to, Dasarath hasn't spoken to his sons yet, just Janak speaking to Dasarath saying, can the preliminary marriage rituals begin? We'll find an auspicious time tomorrow and they can begin tomorrow. Dasarath's reply isn't yes or no. Dasarath's reply is cultural. He says, a gift depends upon the giver. And whatever you say, O knower of righteousness, let us do that. How sweet. The very next day, the preliminary rituals begin. Janak sends a messenger to his brother, Kushadwaja, who comes, and also at Dasarath's request, because this is part of the procedure, this is the next day, then Vashishta is asked to give a description of the lineage of Dasarath. So we're not going to do that this evening, but it's in your chart, page 25. And he literally, it's like for us, the Mangalacharana. We recite the names of our disciplic succession. And it's auspicious to do so. So he recites the names just by hearing the names. It invokes the awesomeness, just the names for people of his time. Those names mean something. For us, it's like, how am I going to remember all these names? But for them, it's invoking the power and the auspiciousness of those persons. Then Vashishta makes the suggestion. Your brother, you have two daughters. The younger daughter is Urmila, and the older daughter is Sita. I suggest that you have your younger daughter marry Lakshmana. Urmila should marry Lakshmana, and Sita can marry Rama. Immediately, Janaka says, I accept. And he said, I say it 3 times, I declare it 3 times. Both of these girls should be married, respectively, to Ram and Lakshmana. It's this celebration time. And so Janaka suggests to Dasarath, let the preliminary rituals continue over the next 3 days, and the wedding will take place 3 days from now. Our astrologers have calculated it's auspicious time. Then apparently Vishwamitra Muni and Vashishta had a little powwow, little Brahmarshi conference. And they had decided that not only the 2 daughters of Janaka, but the 2 daughters of Kushadwaja should be married at the same time. And they made that proposal. Vishwamitra made the proposal. Vashishta seconded it. They took a vote. And so there was a marriage, all 4 were married at the same time. Especially endorsed by, recommended by, blessed by these 2 exalted personalities. Vishwamitra Muni, and Vashishta. Now it's mentioned that other kings were also invited, and soon to arrive was Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira was Kaikeyi's brother, and Kaikeyi and Yudhishthira were the son of the king of Kaikeya, and his name was Ashwapati. So Yudhishthira came to attend the wedding and also make a request after the wedding, Bharata, please come and visit your father-in-law after the wedding. Your grandfather, your mother's father. So Dasratha is engaging himself in giving in charity because he brought carts and carts and cartloads of items to distribute and very charitably engaged in all that. Now there's lengthy description, as people really like weddings. There's details and details and details about weddings, and we're not going to go into the details. But the preliminaries are done, the wedding comes, the four young men, the appropriate things that Janaka is said to Janaka, Janaka's appropriate reply. Dasratha brings his four sons, and they're brought to where the yajna is going to be performed. And Sita comes first. Janaka literally gives the hand of Sita in marriage, saying, "Here is my daughter Sita, to be your assistant in executing your sacred duties. Take her hand and accept her. This fortunate lady will be devoted to you, following you always like a shadow." So the commentators speak a lot about following him like a shadow. Specifically, the shadow never leaves the object that's casting the shadow. And it's reflecting or mirroring or enhancing the efforts of the object that's casting the shadow. She will never leave your side. She will be with you permanently. And interestingly, there's another detail. She places the hand of Sita on top of the hand of Ram, not the other way around. And commentators describe there's a significance to that. And that is, she would always be there as his good wife to protect him. And in case there were some weaknesses shown, she would help him from succumbing to those weaknesses. Interesting detail. So one by one, the other daughters and their prospective husbands, the same procedure is followed. And of course, the main focus goes to Sita and Ram and Janaka's words about Sita. He speaks of her by yet another name. Ayodhya means one who's not born of an ordinary human being. She came out of the earth. Ayodhya. He describes her qualities as being virtuous, abiding by all proper rules, because she was trained in the royal family. She knows everything that's expected of her as an ideal queen. He guaranteed that she would fulfill that. An ideal model wife, always respecting her husband when he chose the right path, following him, and respecting as well, specifically as described, unhesitatingly correcting him if he deviated. There's an example of this here, when Ram is proposing to Sita that she stay behind in Ayodhya while he goes to the forest for 14 years. And she says something pretty heavy. She said, if my father Janaka were here, he'd ask, who is this person dressed as if he's a man, but really a woman, that doesn't know the principles of Dharma and is making such a preposterous, adharmic proposal, my father would ask that question. Like, how can you ask me to act against the codes of Dharma? My father said to stay by your side at all times and support you, whether it's good times or bad times, to support you. And if you have fortune, I'll share in that fortune. If you go to the forest, I'll go to the forest. How can you want to uphold the word of your father, and you don't want me to uphold the word of my father? Please take me with you. So she was strong, submissive, faithful, and clear. And she, as Ram, speaks perfectly appropriately in all circumstances, so does she. Very strong. So Janaka's duty as father is now complete, and he's feeling great satisfaction, at the same time feeling natural separation, impending separation. After hearing the words of Janak to Ram, Ram speaks in the public assembly that he will take this Ekapatni Vrata vow. He'll only have one wife, and kings certainly at the time were allowed to have more than one queen. Dasra had quite a few, 353. We heard about this. 3 principal queens and the others were just ready to keep Parashuram away. But they were queens, 353 queens. So everyone was really happy. We're going to end this multiple queen program with Ram here. One queen. Then there's a little humorous episode that's not from Valmiki Ramayana, but Vashishta told Sita to place a garland on Ram, but Ram was very tall. And she couldn't reach, and Ram wouldn't lower himself so he was having fun. So Lakshmana came to touch the feet of Ram. And as Lakshmana came to touch the feet of Ram, Ram bowed down. Ram bowed down, Sita put the garland on. And everybody did what you just did. They clapped and they laughed and they enjoyed. And Ram was appreciating the cleverness of Lakshmana and the intelligence of Sita, how to take advantage of the circumstance created by Lakshmana. So the whole city of Mithila is in festive mood and celebration and mirth and happiness and music and the very next morning, before everyone rises, because they're all kind of partied out from the wedding the previous day, Vishwamitra Muni left. When he left Sita Ashram, knowingly he was not going to return. He had gone there for upholding a religious vow, it had been fulfilled, and now this vow of killing Rishi Sabambu is done, the marriage of Sita and Ram is done, his business is done, and now he's going to go to the Himalayas and continue in his austerities, which he knows so well, by the side of the Kaushiki River, which is his dear sister, now in the celestial form. So we'll end with this little description that I said it earlier, but just repeat it again. Some commentators say this term Balakanda, everyone naturally thinks it's about the childhood activities of Lord Rama. But another sense is the going from immaturity to maturity in a life of perfection. Vishwamitra Muni being the person. It's about him, they say. And he doesn't appear again in the whole of Ramayana. That's it. When he goes, that's it. But he's gone from a virtuous king to a person who became very egocentric and offended a great Brahmana sage, left his kingly position and began striving for a more spiritual, brahminical position, although his purpose was like Dhruva Maharaj, not a good one. It was a revenge motivation, an outdoing and competing motivation, totally materialistic. So, but then step by step became controlled, mechanical form, control of mind and senses, and got mercy. By somehow being an instrument of service to Ram, and then the direct association of Ram transformed him completely all the rest of the way. So when he left, the meditation wasn't let me get power and one-upmanship over the next fellow, or achieve the Brahmarshi position and then I can be proud of myself. It was to go meditate on Lord Ramachandra. Now, he could just stay and serve Ramachandra like Vasishtha was doing, but he had another spirit, another purpose, another calling, and that's what he did. Exalted personality. Difficult journey, but exalted personality in the end. Amazing service to Ayodhya, to Sita and Ram, to King Janak, to Dasarath, to the world. So that ends Balakanda. And then tomorrow morning we're going to start the journey back to Ayodhya and the beginning of Ayodhya Kanda. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Ramachandra ki jai.